Even though I loved my job at Flipkart, it was always like, okay, like I'm confident that I can do something more.
For finding the idea and then also for finding people. A lot of hard work and grit is needed. अगर startup कर रहे हो, it won't be easy.
And
It will
बेशर्मी
require बेशर्मी.
बेशर्मी बहुत कुछ समय लगती है इंडिया से वर्ल्ड क्लास SaaS बन सकता है बिकॉज वर्ल्ड में डिमांड है इंडिया में कॉस्ट कम है इंडिया में टैलेंट है
If you work for companies, you will find more ideas in that domain.
talking to all these people in the Bay Area, we figured कि ये जो हमने product बनाया this can be used for something much bigger.
Hello, folks. Welcome to yet another podcast episode. Today we have a very special guest, Akshay Lal. He has been my long-term friend since the IIT Kharagpur days. We used to play FIFA, Age of Empires together. In our friends, we usually call him LOL because he's always smiling, has a very charming personality as well. And one of the things about him on a personal level is that he is very just generally curious and knowledgeable. So we also used to call him Wikipedia when in college, and he used to participate in these GK competitions and so on. And then he had a very interesting journey, which we will talk about today. It's about his startup, how he got into Y Combinator, and then how he also had a very successful exit. तो ये सब आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे. So maybe give us a brief intro and then we can get started.
Thanks, काफी flattering intro तुमने दे दिया है. So yeah, I'm Akshay from Bhopal, and I think जैसा सबका होता है 11th 12th में इंजीनियरिंग एंट्रेंस की पढ़ाई की बट मैंने ध्यान दिया था कि यार बस पढ़ाई नहीं करूँगा साथ में मेरे को फुटबॉल में इंटरेस्ट था तो काफ़ी खेलता रहता था तो वो करते करते खड़गपुर पहुँचे देयर आई स्टडीड metallurgical and materials engineering. एक्चुअली विकिपीडिया में देखा कि कौन से आईआईटी के बारे में सबसे ज़्यादा इन्फॉर्मेशन है तो खड़गपुर ओल्डेस्ट आईआईटी और बंगाल में था तो मुझे लगा हाँ यार फुटबॉल भी खेलते होंगे और फेस्ट में लिखा था तो ठीक है मतलब गुड थिंग्स तो थे डाउन साइड्स नहीं पता थे तब तक बट पहुँच गया खड़गपुर एंड उसके बाद आई थिंक मेटलर्जी में ज़्यादा इंटरेस्ट नहीं था तो उसके बाद लाइक आई थिंक अपन आगे कवर करेंगे बट लाइक 4 साल निकाले यही सब क्विजिंग फुटबॉल थोड़ी बहुत पढ़ाई लिखाई करते हुए एंड लकीली आई गॉट इनटू फ्लिपकार्ट एंड दैट वाज लाइक अ very like I say luckily क्योंकि otherwise I'm not sure if I had gotten into the startup world. You know, my like previous 10 years of my life might have been very very different. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
तो एक क्वेश्चन है so early on you knew कि metallurgy और material science तो नहीं है. So what was your goal कि after college what will you do? What were you thinking at that time?
हाँ मतलब मैंने सेकेंड ईयर में मतलब स्टील प्लांट में इंटर्नशिप की थी 50 डिग्री टेम्परेचर पसीना आ रहा है लाइक आई रियलाइज कि ये तो नहीं करना और ऐसा भी बहुत ज़्यादा मतलब एकेडमिक इंक्लिनेशन मेरा रहा नहीं था तो कॉलेज में थोड़ा बबल सा ही था इतना कुछ पता नहीं था कि बाहर में क्या होता है तो इट वाज मोर लाइक बेस्ट प्लेसमेंट कहाँ लगती है व्हाट्स लाइक व्हाट्स द गुड अपॉर्चुनिटीज जो प्लेसमेंट में आते हैं तो उसके हिसाब से आई बेसिकली यूज्ड टू फिगर आउट कि जैसे स्पोर्ट्स में था तो स्लम्बर्ज एक कंपनी थी जिसका बहुत पॉपुलर था कि अगर तुमने इंटर आईआईटी खेला है आईआईटी को रिप्रेजेंट किया उधर तो your resume will automatically be shortlisted and you'll have a good opportunity to work in oil rigs and so on. So in hindsight, luckily I didn't get shortlisted, and then I went for the next best thing, which was I think yeah Flipkart was a new startup around that time that came on for placements for a generic role. मतलब मैं metallurgy में था तो and I hadn't done any coding or समय code chef किया करते थे तो बहुत सारे तो वो सब मेरे को एकदम इंटरेस्ट था मतलब आई थिंक कि मैं 9th 10th में मैं कोडिंग किया करता था पर मैंने एक लाइक पोकेडेक्स भी बनाया था HTML में मतलब 150 बार कॉपी पेस्ट मार के एक पोकेमॉन को एडिट करके बट इन दोस 4 years तो नॉन मेटलर्जी नॉन प्रोग्रामिंग द अपॉर्चुनिटीज वर गेटिंग इनटू operations analytics के jobs होते थे और business related jobs तो Flipkart basically had like a very generic business operations kind of role जिसके लिए उन्होंने हायर किया था. तो yeah, I sat for that whole thing. Luckily got through. वो नहीं होता तो I would have been a Tata Steel क्योंकि metallurgy में था. वो हो जाता, but yeah, would have been very different. तो उसी बगल में यही ये पता था, उसमें अप्लाई किया, काइंड ऑफ गॉट लकी टू गेट इनटू फ्लिपकार्ट.
ओ नाइस। तो फ्लिपकार्ट में यू सेड कि बिजनेस ऑपरेशंस टाइप का रोल था, तो उस एंड दिस इज 2013, अ सर्टेन kind of aptitude were they looking for, and then how did that translate into your next experience? The people who were selected who really had more entrepreneurial mindset, and was that a luck factor कि सारे वैसे लोग साथ में आ गए, and which eventually also led you to find co-founders for your startup?
या मैन, आई मीन, तो जब उन्होंने इंटरव्यू किया था तो दे आस्क्ड, आई वुड से एनालिटिकल स्किल्स और कम्युनिकेशन. आई थिंक ये दो चीज़ के लिए उन्होंने टेस्ट किया था. एनालिटिकल इज बेसिकली गेस्टिमेट्स, लाइक उन्होंने पूछा था कि कॉलेज के कैंपस के बाहर जो बंदा चाय बेचता है, दिन के कितने चाय बेचता होगा. एंड यू नो, मतलब यू कैन लर्न हाउ टू डू दैट, बट वही होता है थोड़ा, यू नीड टू बी क्विक ऑन योर फीट, गुड विद नंबर्स, थोड़ा हैव एन अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. तो उसके हिसाब से मतलब रफली आई थिंक उन्होंने वो जज किया था, एंड वेदर you can speak, you know, in a group, whether you can put your point, you're not like very shy. So it was like the Flipkart was a very fast growing company. तब already I think 2-3 हज़ार लोग की कंपनी हो चुकी थी, and not sure, just probably short of unicorn back then. And e-commerce, टेक्स भी बना रहे हो, सामान भी बेच रहे हो, there is a lot of operations involved for like every single thing that you need to optimize. You need to buy stuff, sell stuff, figure out कितने में बेचना है, कितने में खरीदना है, किसको टारगेट करना है, कितना डिस्काउंट देना है, stuff like that. तो वो बेसिक ऑपरेशंस करने के लिए they needed, you know, smart, cheap people. तो उसके लिए उन्होंने आई थिंक 100 सवा 100 लोग का बैच अक्रॉस ऑल IITs हायर किया था. एंड अब हाइंडसाइट में आई कैन से कि a lot of us ended up starting up from that group, and a lot of people ended up either, you know, playing very important parts, like they're all like good at good positions in this Indian startup ecosystem right now. तो आई वुड attribute it to, एक तो जिस तरह के लोगों ने हायर किया, like the skills they tested for, and second माहौल ही ऐसा था उसमें. मतलब हम वहाँ काम कर रहे थे तो we would never crave about our job. We will always be very excited कि वो like ये मतलब Flipkart इस तरह की जगह इस तरह का स्ट्रैटेजी चलाए, अगर डिस्काउंटिंग में तो क्या होगा, स्नैपडील ऐसा क्यों कर रहा है, दूसरे कंट्रीज में क्या चल रहा है. तो इट वाज मतलब द, आई वुड से एनवायरनमेंट वाज वेरी हाई ओनरशिप. लाइक मुझे याद है, मैं मेरा काम था, फर्स्ट जॉब वाज सेटिंग द प्राइसिंग फॉर मोबाइल लैपटॉप एक्सेसरीज फॉर ऑल ऑफ फ्लिपकार्ट. लाइक मैं डिसाइड करता था कि एक माउस जो उनके मतलब 5,000 यूनिट बिक रहे हैं, वो कितने के बिकेंगे, पेन ड्राइव में कितना प्राइस करना चाहिए. आई हैड द पावर टू सेल इट फॉर ₹1 and buy it myself if I wanted to. And I was like 7 days into a company right out of college, and इतना पावर हो तो काफ़ी प्रेशर था पहले तो कि भाई इफ़ यू मेस अप वंस, लाइक कुछ लोगों ने किया था, मैंने भी एक बार किया था, लाइक गलती से एक्सेल गलत अपलोड कर दी थी, और किसी चीज़ का प्राइस जो मतलब लैपटॉप 40,000 में बिकना चाहिए था, उसका प्राइस मैंने तो ₹10 कर दिया था. लकीली some tech system overlooked it and like deactivated that product, नहीं तो मतलब लाखों करोड़ों का नुकसान हो जाता. पर वही था, उतना ट्रस्ट मिलता था, एंड आई थिंक उस ओनरशिप के माहौल में पीपल एंडेड अप लाइक, यू नो, ग्रोइंग रियली रियली क्विकली. तो आई वुड एट्रीब्यूट इट टू दैट. एंड काफ़ी यंग एनर्जेटिक प्लेस था, बहुत मज़ा आता था काम करने में. तो इट वाज, एंड दैट्स व्हाई आई से इट्स जस्ट स्ट्रोक ऑफ लक दैट आई एंडेड अप देयर, व्हिच शेप्ड, यू नो, बीइंग इन दैट इकोसिस्टम.
Nice. Yes, I remember कि around 2013-15 time, if you are in one of these companies which were really rising, like Paytm थी and Flipkart थी, so you'll be solving really hard problems, and then a lot of ownership will be given to fresh graduates. So that really shaped the experience. That's nice. So how did that turn around for you कि Flipkart में नहीं रहना? You were saying कि there was an atmosphere, कि people were already entrepreneurial and they were looking to start their own things. what made it for you? What was your motivation to actually embark on that journey?
So I spent 2 years at Flipkart. The first year was in this role that I just talked about. Then after 1 year, I got an opportunity to move into the marketplace that Flipkart was setting up. So Flipkart at that time was a retailer. He खुद ही सामान खरीद कर बेचते थे. They were scaling up into a marketplace and नई टीम बन रही थी, उसके नए प्रोडक्ट्स बन रहे थे. So the whole team of product managers there wanted again like smart young people who they could move into the team to do a lot of miscellaneous product management jobs. So a few of my friends had already moved into those roles and उन्होंने recommend किया था to that those guys कि I could also do a good job there. So I moved into that team and एक बहुत अच्छा उस समय like attraction था कि उस टीम वालों को MacBook मिलता था. अभी तक हम विंडोज लैपटॉप पे थे तो उस चक्कर में ठीक है अप्लाई किया स्ट्रीम में गए एंड दैट वाज बेसिकली अ स्टार्टअप विद इन फ्लिपकार्ट एकदम स्क्रैच से हम नया बिजनेस स्टार्ट कर रहे थे तो एंड वो टीम आई थिंक 12-13 हम लोग बिजनेस एनालिस्ट थे उस टीम में उस 12-13 में से आई थिंक 6 स्टार्टअप निकले होंगे एंड some have gone on to become unicorns, do big exits, like
Nice.
the best startups that kind of came around that time in India. And हमारे जो मैनेजर्स थे वो खुद ही इतने entrepreneurial थे वो हमें मोटिवेट ऐसे सोच like we would just discuss ideas कि ये बिजनेस अपॉर्चुनिटी इसमें हम क्या प्रोडक्ट बना सकते हैं एंड वी बहुत काइंड ऑफ हैकर माइंडसेट भी था लोगों में दे वर कमिंग फ्रॉम इट लॉट ऑफ पीपल वाज फ्रॉम अ टेक्निकल बैकग्राउंड तो हम जैसे आई रिमेम्बर कुछ तो जियो फोकस्ड लाइक हाइपर लोकल प्रोडक्ट बना रहे थे तो हम टिंडर एक्सप्लोर कर रहे थे मतलब मेरे बॉस लाइक कि उसमें लाइक लोग लाइक जियो लाइक जीपीएस यूज करके एंड वी वुड ट्राई आउट कि लोकेशन फेकिंग वाले प्लगइन्स इनटू ऑन द फोन कि कैसे मैं लंदन या न्यूयॉर्क का लोकेशन फेक करके कुछ लाइक टिंडर यूज कर सकता हूँ एंड वो लर्निंग्स हम लोग प्रोडक्ट पे लगाते थे तो माहौल बहुत सही था वो लोग हमें मोटिवेट करते थे so we kind of, a lot of us left to start up. Eventually, our managers, like each of our managers, also have post like their stint at Flipkart gone on to found like really good companies. So
Okay.
Mohali बहुत सही था. And even though I loved my job at Flipkart, it was always like okay, like I'm confident that I can do something more, something bigger, have a bigger value add or impact. So
Hmm.
that time, my two friends, Sid and AJ, they were also in the same, which सोच रहे थे स्टार्टअप करने का आइडिया वाइडिया था नहीं हमारे पास बट मतलब हम लोग काइंड ऑफ साथ में ही रहते थे hang out करते थे तो वी डिसाइडेड कि चलो साथ में ही स्टार्टअप करेंगे एंड तो बिना आइडिया के बिना बिजनेस प्लान के बिना लॉन्ग टर्म बहुत सोचे वी जस्ट क्विट एंड डिसाइडेड कि चलो कुछ करते हैं
तो मेन मोटिवेशन थी कि कुछ बड़ा करना है, कुछ तूफानी करना है एंड जस्ट टेक द प्लान एंड वी विल फिगर इट आउट. वो भी एक काफी सही अप्रोच है. इफ यू हैव द राइट पीपल देन इटरेशन से कुछ ना कुछ प्रोडक्ट आ ही जाएगा एंड प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट मिले. नाइस. तो एक्चुअली व्हाट वुड यू से कि जो तीन लोग थे तुम सेड अजंक्य और यू तो यू हैड कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री स्किल्स या दैट वाज आल्सो कि लेट्स फिगर इट आउट.
मतलब अभी सोचो तो इतना भी कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री स्किल्स नहीं था हमारे हम तीनों बिजनेस साइड से प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट में आए थे तीनों में से किसी को कोडिंग नहीं आती थी थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस ये था कि मैं ज़्यादा टेक्निकली इंक्लाइंड था वो दोनों ज़्यादा बिजनेस सेल्स लीडरशिप इंक्लाइंड थे तो आई
ओके.
मीन on a macro level it was very similar but there were specifics पर उस समय तक समझ नहीं आता था तो we took the plunge and let's talk to people find out their problems and figure out what has potentially a scope तो मतलब ये नहीं था कि एक शाइनी आइडिया मिल गया तो चलो करते हैं उतनी थोड़ी अकल थी बट तो हम लोग जाके अपने सर्कल्स में लोगों से इंटरव्यू करते थे बात करते थे कि क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं कोई आइडिया हमारे पास होता था जिसमें हमें पोटेंशियल लगता था तो हम गूगल फॉर्म्स पे सर्वेज रन करके दोस्तों से लोगों से वैलिडेशन लेते थे कि वुड यू पे मनी फॉर दिस if this thing were available. So we spent like almost 2-3 months figuring that out. Iterated on
जैसे
a
ये
couple
थोड़ा
of things.
ये डीप डाइव कर मतलब कैसे आइडियाज एक्सप्लोर करते थे, किन
तो
लोगों के पास जाके, एंड हाउ वुड यू आस्क कि ये तुम्हें क्या लगता है, क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
हाँ, तो जैसे हम लोग जैसे बैडमिंटन या फुटबॉल खेलते थे, तो ग्राउंड बुक करके बैंगलोर में कल्चर है कि तुम जाओ और 1,000 रुपये दो, 5 सेट ग्राउंड मिल जाएगा, प्ले फॉर 1 आवर। तो उस पर फ़ोन लगा के करना पड़ता था, कोई ट्रेस नहीं रहता था, कैंसिलेशन मुश्किल होता था। तो अगेन मतलब दिस साउंड वेरी नाइव इन हाइंडसाइट, हमने सोचा कि चलो इसको एग्रीगेट करने का ऐप बना लेते हैं, ग्राउंड बुक करने का। आजकल है सक्सेसफुल ऐप, बट आई एम नॉट श्योर इफ दे आर क्रिएटिंग अ लॉट ऑफ मनी देयर। बट ये हमने एक्सप्लोर किया। इसी के एक्सटेंशन पे हमने एक्सप्लोर किया था कि तो यूएस में क्लास पास का फंडा है, जैसे कि वेर यू कैन गेट अ पास एंड जिम, मतलब इन अ लाइक कैटलॉग ऑफ जिम्स जिसमें भी जाके 1 घंटे वर्कआउट कर सकते हो। तो वी फिगर्ड कि कैन वी डू समथिंग सिमिलर। तो वी वुड वी मेड अ मेलिंग लिस्ट ऑफ लाइक आवर फ्रेंड्स, 50 100 फ्रेंड्स व्हाटएवर, एंड गूगल फॉर्म उनको एक मेल में भेज दिया कि कि हम ऐसा सोच रहे हैं, लाइक इफ वी वर टू गिव यू दिस सर्विस फॉर whatever 500 1,000 rupees a month where you can go and access these things in Coimbatore, would you be willing to pay roughly? मतलब लोग obviously सर्वे में एकदम सच नहीं बोलेंगे, you can't really trust what they're saying, but मोटा मोटी आइडिया लग जाता है। एंड नाउ माय co-founders, वो लोग तो एक्चुअली, मैं उतना एक्सट्रोवर्ट नहीं था, बट दे वुड एक्चुअली गो इनटू जिम्स एंड रिसेप्शन में जाके वहाँ के मैनेजर से पूछते थे कि ऐसी सर्विस होगी तो आप साइन अप करोगे क्या, लोग आएंगे 1 दिन के लिए तो आपको क्या प्रॉब्लम्स होंगी। वो एक्चुअली जाके 5-10 जिम ओनर से बात किए, पता चला कि जिम वालों का धंधा चलता ही है क्योंकि लोग जिम आते नहीं है। वो साल भर का मेंबरशिप दे देते हैं, उनके पास इतनी कैपेसिटी नहीं होती कि जितने लोगों को उनने मेंबरशिप दी, उतने लोग अगर एक बार में आ गए तो जिम ही नहीं चल पाएगा। तो वी थॉट कि तो थोड़ा मतलब दैट्स एन एग्जांपल, जब बात करने से पता चला कि ये बिजनेस मॉडल नहीं चलेगा यहाँ पे।
राइट।
चलना भी होगा तो इवेंचुअली जैसे इंडिया में कर्ज ने चलाए थे, तो एक्चुअली बॉट ओवर द चेंज एंड लाइक स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड एवरीथिंग। तो ये एक आइडिया था। कुछ और मतलब एक आइडिया हमें था कि connect you to an expert. So let's say you are a software engineer, you have some, you are problem in Java, so I'll connect you to a Java expert from somewhere. तो इसके लिए हमने मतलब एक्चुअली अपने दोस्तों को पकड़ के दूसरों को कनेक्ट कराया, सेशंस कराए फॉर लाइक एन इंडिविजुअल टू टॉक टू एन एक्सपर्ट फॉर हाफ एन आवर, एंड वी फिगर्ड आउट द challenges, the lack of demand for certain things. तो ये करते करते इवेंचुअली वी स्टम्बल्ड ऑन, तो वी सिंस वी वर एट फ्लिपकार्ट, वी आल्सो न्यू कि फ्लिपकार्ट के अंदर किस तरह की प्रॉब्लम्स हैं। तो प्रोडक्ट्स आते थे प्लेटफॉर्म में जिनको लिस्ट करना होता था। तो लेट्स से ये शर्ट कोई बेचना चाहता है, टी शर्ट, तो इसका बस मर्चेंट जो फोटो डालेगा, देन देयर वाज एन इन हाउस टीम ऑफ लाइक 500 600 पीपल हु वुड ऑन एन इंटरनल टूल कैटलॉग कि ये राउंड नेक है, वाइट है, ग्राफिक टी शर्ट है, स्टफ लाइक दैट। एंड क्या होता था, बिग बिलियन डे में बहुत सारा वॉल्यूम एक बार में आता था, तो वो 500 600 लोग काफ़ी नहीं करते थे, एंड एक बैकलॉग हो जाता था, तो जो प्रोडक्ट सेल आते आते लिस्ट ही नहीं हो पाते थे, तो लोगों के पोटेंशियल सेलर से रेवेन्यू कम पड़ता था उनको। तो यहाँ पे सिंस आई हैड वर्कड इन द नेबरिंग टीम ऑफ दिस टीम, इस टीम के प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर से बात किया कि यार ऐसा सर्विस अगर हम आपको दें जहाँ पे आप ये काम हमें आउटसोर्स करो, एंड हम एक मोबाइल ऐप बनाएंगे जिसमें हम ये वर्क एज माइक्रो टास्क वी विल give it to people on an Android app. They will spend 10-15 minutes, like they will like, you know, just like a quiz, like Duolingo, answer questions, is this round neck or square neck or whatever, एंड ये डेटा हम आपको वापस देंगे, तो इससे आप अपना कैटलॉगिंग स्केल अप कर सकते हो। वुड यू बाय दिस एंड वील मेक इट चीपर देन आउटसोर्सिंग टू अ बीपीओ। तो they said yes, and we talked to a few more, like पेटीएम में जो दोस्त थे, इधर उधर मिंत्रा में दोस्त थे, एंड got a positive response कि हाँ यार इसमें तो एक्चुअली पैसे कमा। तो then we started with this idea, and that's how event came about। एंड हम लोग का वहाँ पे एक हमने गलती की थी कि we were very, we called it Playment because it was you play, that was our tagline। तो we thought कि हाँ कैटलॉगिंग के लिए तो कंपनीज की हेल्प कर रहे हैं, बट हम एक वर्क प्लेटफॉर्म बनाएंगे कि इंडिया she started with, and but eventually we figured out कि यार it is always limited by how much business we can get। करोड़ों बेरोजगार लोग हैं, सबके लिए जॉब क्रिएट करने के लिए तो से 100 वाले की कंपनी बनानी पड़ेगी, तो चलो 100 लोग से ही काम करवा लेते हैं, 1000 लोग से काम करवा लेते हैं, उसके लिए we started and then built this.
Nice. So, how did you find the first customer and validate that this idea is actually worth the startup?
So we, again, being at Flipkart, like it was kind of an unfair advantage. So we
Hmm.
knew sellers who would sell on Flipkart. I think it was one of the sellers जो basically यूएस से सामान इम्पोर्ट करके इंडिया में बेचते हैं, और उनका एक कैटलॉग था amazon.com पे, उसको हमें वो चाहते थे कि वो Amazon इंडिया पे लिस्ट या फ्लिपकार्ट इंडिया पे लिस्ट करें, तो उनके साथ हमने एक प्रोजेक्ट किया था वेयर वी एक्चुअली मेड लाइक आई डोंट रिमेम्बर द एग्जैक्ट अमाउंट बट आई थिंक कुछ था 10-15 हज़ार डॉलर type. We actually made money. We were bootstrapping at that time. We had put our savings into this, and so we started off with making something profitable. वो वैलिडेशन आया था कि हाँ एक्चुअली हम पैसे कमा रहे हैं, people are willing to pay money for this, and then we then also had validation from our product manager friends at Flipkart and Myntra. Let's say if we scale this up, make it more of a polished offering, then they would also buy this.
That's very interesting. So, somehow actually working on Flipkart already helped you in finding co-founders and then also helped you with the idea. You knew कि this is the problem जो कि big e-commerce websites तो face कर ही रही हैं. So they need a solution. And I think in hindsight also, like जो Flipkart के founders थे वो Bansal brothers, they had a similar proposition. They were working for Amazon and they found out कि अच्छा this is a problem which India needs to have a solution for, and they started. So it's also interesting in retrospect कि like if you work for companies, you will find more ideas in that domain. So you get some advantage in learning about that domain, and then will have actually there is some unfair advantage in some way about that
Right.
domain which can lead you to find ideas.
And for B2B
That's pretty
stuff,
awesome.
yeah, for anything B2B, like it's opaque, hidden to the आम जनता. When you're working inside a
Right.
company, I think you would know it best as well in your current company कि जो enterprises को या B2B में बेचते हो, वो किसी को नहीं पता हुआ है, apart from the people who are actually doing it day in, day out.
Right. I think there's a big split. Like B2B enterprise businesses will have a very different model, and founders generally have that experience in that domain versus consumer who are much more coming from fresh grads or college students ki they know what is the next wave where consumers are going, and they will form really good startups. And examples are again Facebook, even Google, Snapchat, lots of those consumer based examples. Good. The Playment mein, I think you were saying ki you did not have technical co-founders who could code. So how did the first prototype came along? And you also did not have bootstrap. You were bootstrapping. You did not have savings. So
So,
wow, वो कैसे हुआ कि let's build a product and let's sell it.
so we were actually, so yes, we were there कि ओके 3 लोग हैं, आइडिया है, बनाना पड़ेगा. So we went out looking for fourth co-founder. Basically, looked at everyone in our network, asked you as well, and every developer we knew. So luckily, there was one guy who agreed to be our co-founder. He started building our first app, but then some personal stuff happened, and after like 1 week of work, he quit. He said, "Yeah, I won't actually be able to do this." So then basically we were back to square one with some code that we could not understand and some product hosted somewhere that we could not understand and figure out करना था कि क्या करें. So again we went to our networks and he so Sid batchmate from Kharagpur our batch he was like a friend. उससे बात की, he was like very interested and he decided to join us. And this was like after a month of like proper tragedy, like savings to जी रहे हैं, प्रोडक्ट है नहीं, डेवलप करना है, क्या करें. And but हाँ वो एकदम perfect timing से आया. When he talked to us, he didn't even quit. He just stopped going to his office from the next day. And बस उसके
Was
घर
he
पे
working for Google? I'm
बाबा
not
जॉब,
sure. Was he work? Huh?
बाबा जॉब,
Okay.
that company. It was a nice company. They hired like some really good talent. So even he was a self learner. So he was from geophysics, got placed there, एंड 1.5 साल 2 साल में वहाँ पे सीखा. Anyway, he came on board and first app, the whole thing, backend, etc. And then we actually launched it. So again, that was काफी हमने मेहनत की. We actually reached out cold to everyone, and luckily, he was on board with the idea. He was excited about the idea. So that's where then गाड़ी it restarted.
Nice. तो I think मेरी learning इसमें यही है कि first for finding the idea and then also for finding people, a lot of hard work and grit is needed. अगर startup कर रहे हो, it won't be easy.
And
It will
बेशर्मी
require बेशर्मी.
बेशर्मी बहुत कुछ समय लगती है क्योंकि you have literally have nothing to offer. You're offering like future, money, shares, whatever, nothing right now.
What is the difference between बेशर्मी and lying? कि promise कर दिए हैं, but you also for sure कि या फिर for some reason कि it
तो
might
मैं
not be true.
हाँ मतलब you मतलब acknowledge कि तुम सपने बेच रहे हो.
हम्म.
तुम मतलब झूठ नहीं बोल रहे हो कि हाँ भाई पैसे मिलेंगे.
वो तुम्हारा भी सपना है खुद का.
हाँ, सपना है मतलब it's a known fact कि 95% of startups fail, so you kind of start with that. But like,
Right.
are you willing to bet on the other 5%, willing to bet on you? So those kind of things.
Cool. I think the playbook is basically for finding an idea. You have to network and email as aggressively as possible. Ask people, ask customers to just validate that this is the right idea in the right direction. And then you have to build a prototype and actually get a product market fit. And especially for enterprise business, actually get a customer which is also very eager to give you feedback and iterate along with you. So तो और उसके बाद जर्नी कैसी हुई? I think the biggest next thing which will come into is how do you scale? And for
Yeah.
scale, you need funds. So what was that journey? What was the next step after this?
तो हाँ सही बात है. तो इसके बाद we basically had a few customers. We needed more customers. They needed more features, so we needed more people to actually build those features. You need money to pay them, so that's where funding essentially comes in. And उस समय अच्छा माहौल था इंडिया में. Like VCs were coming in, funds were flowing in. So we
उस
decided
समय for
to
audiences around 2015, 2016.
15, 16. मतलब yes, this was 15, 15, 16 मतलब 15 and first time, second time. तो उसका प्लेबुक एसेंशियली यही होता है कि one person who is the CEO is responsible for the fundraise. You need to make sure कि बाकी लोग उससे distract ना हो क्योंकि fundraise is a very draining and distracting process. And then it's like a job search. Right? You make a list of potentially who you want to reach out to, list of all VCs, list of all angels. You figure out how much you want to raise. इसके लिए थोड़ी planning करनी पड़ती है, like financial planning होती है. कितने लोग हायर करोगे, कितने सर्वर कॉस्ट रहेंगे, how much is your burn going to be, how much is your potential revenue going to be, so how long do you need money to survive, and accordingly you figure out those things, and then you reach out to people. Ideally warm मतलब network के through someone introduces you to their VC friend or angel friend. Pooled क्योंकि थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है convert करना, people won't really pay attention to you. And that's the thing, we basically reached out to everyone and we refined our pitch. Essentially हम पहले जिस तरह से pitch करते थे we realized लोगों को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है हम क्या बात कर रहे हैं. तो we refined it कि पहले हम थोड़ा visual demo दिखाएंगे प्रोडक्ट का ताकि एक बैठे तो दिमाग में कि क्या कर रहे हैं. Then we jump into एक teaser दे दिया मैंने फिर ट्रेलर कि ये business problem है, ये market opportunity है. This is our team, which is very important. See, you should bet on them. This is why we'll be successful, and this is our ask. So you kind of do that. You do that with as many people as possible, and you try to do that in as short a time frame as possible. Because ultimately,
Okay.
this is you want to get the best terms, raise whatever, either more money or dilute less equity. तो अगर तुम ऐसे टाइम कर सको कि एक ही टाइम पे तुम्हें 3-4 इन्वेस्टर्स से इंटरेस्ट आ रहा है या टर्म शीट आ रही है, तो देन यू कैन एक्चुअली प्ले ऑन योर एक्सपीरियंस के बाद. 8 साल एक्सपीरियंस के बाद बता रहा हूँ, उस समय ऑब्वियसली तो नहीं पता था, तो बट फंडा ही देते थे. तो ये
So
सब
you're
हुआ.
creating basically demand जिससे कि फिर
डिमांड. हाँ
competition हो within that
हाँ
demand
यस
and everyone's price will increase. Okay.
यस And matlab, you need to have options. Basically, if there is one person who's investing in you and no one else is interested, it is very likely that you will not have good terms. And good terms means that you'll either get less money or you'll dilute more, or there's even legal stuff that's involved. Ki, let's say eventually bad days come, so can that investor force you to sell the company for nothing? वो सब बहुत legal फंडे होते हैं जो समझना
Mhm.
पड़ता है. We would discount them for the longest time, but हाँ वो सब होता है and that's why you need like some leverage. So fundraise process था, it went on for a couple of months. We raised some funds. एंड वो फंड आने के बाद भी काफ़ी अच्छा लगता है. हाँ, बैंक कंपनी के बैंक अकाउंट इतने पैसे हैं, वी कैन गो आउट एंड हायर पीपल, वी कैन डू सम पीआर जिससे लोग जानेंगे. ये वो लाइक काइंड ऑफ फंड रेज के बाद एंड वो सबसे फिर एक्सेलरेट होता है लाइक एज यू डेवलप एज योर वीसी आल्सो मेक इंट्रोडक्शन टू पोटेंशियल कस्टमर्स. तो the whole thing kind of accelerates in terms of product growth as well as business growth.
मेक सेंस। तो ऐसा कुछ फॉर्मूलेक भी होता है क्या कि फॉर द फर्स्ट राउंड दिस इज हाउ मच यू शुड डाइल्यूट एंड नॉट मोर, ऐसे
होता
इज
है.
देयर?
It has evolved. मेरे को प्रेजेंट डे का सच उतना नहीं पता होगा, बट व्हाट आई हैव सीन इज कि वो थोड़ा ज्योग्राफी स्पेसिफिक और इन्वेस्टर टियर स्पेसिफिक होता है. तो जैसे यूएस में वाईसी के टॉपिक पे अपन शायद बाद में आएंगे, बट टिपिकल वाईसी डेमोडी में आजकल होता है कि तुम एटलीस्ट 15 मिलियन की वैल्यूएशन, 10-15 मिलियन की वैल्यूएशन पे रहोगे. मोस्ट कंपनी उतने में रहते हैं एंड यू काइंड ऑफ डाइल्यूट between, like if it's a VC, they want like at least 15-20%. If it's angels, they'll be fine with like सब मिला के that's 15%. So you kind of can do the maths from there to figure out कि तुम कितना उस valuation के कितने पैसे उठा सकते हो. But again, my information might be a little. But ये वहाँ पे रहता है. इंडिया में obviously इससे बहुत कम रहता है. इंडिया में it's mostly valuations are typically much lesser, like in the, I would say, between 3 to 6 million kind of range. And this I'm saying for like usually first time founders who don't have like prior track record of exit or success or anything like that.
Don't have pain. Okay, so let's jump into YC actually a bit. Talk about YC in the whole depth in another video. But for YC, like what made you actually apply for YC? Was it funds? Was it something else? Like what are the criteria generally people apply for YC?
So for us, it was a very unique thing. कि we were doing B2B enterprise almost like a SaaS thing. अभी जब मैंने बताया हम जो like e-commerce कंपनी के लिए एड सर्विंग कर रहे थे, तो इंडिया हमने काइंड ऑफ एग्जॉस्ट कर लिया था. इंडिया में जितने e-commerce कंपनीज थे, इवन साउथ ईस्ट एशिया के e-commerce कंपनीज थे, we were either we had talked to them and they had rejected us, or we were working with them. So we were pretty much working with like half the main e-commerce companies in Southeast Asia, India included, and we wanted to expand. एंड उसके लिए टारगेट कौन सा हमारे करीब होता है. तो हम लोग का आइडिया यही था, वी वांटेड एन एंट्री, a foot in the door यूएस में. And one of his friends, who he was the CEO of Touch, so he suggested कि वो लोग भी पहले वाईसी में रहे थे, तो he suggested कि अपन लोग रेफर कर देते हैं and वाईसी के थ्रू you will get into like more network into the US market. So that's the reason pretty much why we applied for YC. We got through. वो YC का interview process काफी unique होता है. Maybe we'll talk about it some of the time. And yeah, that's how we then got into the US market. Like people contacts we made in YC introduced us to like, e-commerce companies over there, or other similar companies just जिनको हम serve कर रहे थे, to understand कि उनके क्या problems हैं and what they need. Like for example, Pinterest जैसी companies, they had lots of images उनको labeling चाहिए था. उस तरह की companies को हमें opportunity मिला to get in touch with them. But serendipity भी ऐसी हुई कि एक तो ये होता है कि इंडिया में रह के हम लोग का आउटलुक was India scale, and the world scale is much bigger than India scale. हमें जो यहाँ पे 1 करोड़ बहुत ज़्यादा लगता है ना, वहाँ पे लोगों को 150 के कुछ नहीं लगता था. Right? If let's say that's a deal you're getting with a customer. तो वहाँ गए, we saw like things are like hundreds, thousand times bigger markets, again, everything. And we also figured कि AI is a thing. So
Right.
the, this is kind of an interesting part. India में actually नहीं पता था. Like very few people were actually doing production of practical applications of AI, except for like ads targeting. There were very few applications of machine learning. वहाँ पे there were companies in our batch who were trying to make self-driving cars, who were trying to make self-autonomous drones, जिनमें कैमरा
Hmm.
फिट करके it would figure out कि सामने चिड़िया तो नहीं आ रही तो डायरेक्शन बदलते हैं, दीवार पे नहीं आ गया तो रुक जाते हैं, stuff like that. And those companies came and said कि hey, you have an app जिसमें तुम ये टी-शर्ट्स को क्लासिफाई कर रहे हो, क्या तुम मेरे लिए इमेजेस को क्लासिफाई कर सकते हो कि इसमें बर्ड है कि नहीं है, इसमें पेडेस्ट्रियन है कि नहीं है? We said okay,
Right.
why not? Looks interesting. हमारा प्रोडक्ट कर सकता है. So we started doing that, and that's where we realized एक तो हमें अपने कैटलॉग साइट वाला प्रोडक्ट या उसका जो बिजनेस है वो स्केल करने में प्रॉब्लम हुई थी. हमने ऑलरेडी इंडिया साउथ एशिया एग्जॉस्ट कर
Hmm.
लिया था एंड आवर रेवेन्यू वर्ल्ड वेरी ग्रेट. वी फिगर्ड कि यार ये जो फ्लिपकार्ट का सचिन बंसल है उसको कैटलॉगिंग में अपने मार्जिन में 0.5% मार्जिन बचा के क्या कर लेगा. दैट्स नॉट प्रॉब्ली टॉप 100 ऑफ प्रायोरिटीज जो हम उसको दे
Hmm.
रहे हैं. बट लेट्स से द पर्सन बिल्डिंग सेल्फ ड्राइविंग कार्स इन वेमो फॉर एग्जांपल, if we can do data labeling for them, that's like top 3 priorities for them, like server compute and वो उसके
Right.
बाद यही आता है. And because of IC, because of like talking to all these people in the Bay Area, हम लोग के batch में थे और दूसरे companies थे, we figured कि ये जो हमने product बनाया this can be used for something much bigger. I mean, we actually then shut cataloging business. Like we had like almost अच्छा खासा business जो इस पे चल रहा था, and we just like told our customers कि you stop doing this, ये product it's time to phase out कर देंगे and we'll then completely focus on AI. That's where we then did this pivot and got into data labeling for AI.
This is very, very impressive. I remember वो time I think हम भी बात करते थे कि data labeling is the solution, and then you really found the application which was 10x the previous problem. And I think आजकल मुझे वो भी लगता है जैसे it's very similar to Nvidia, which had these chips which were used for gaming.
Yeah.
It suddenly found a use case of AI, and then you can ride the wave. Ki this
Yeah.
problem is needed for AI, and then let's get those customers. Also, the technology becomes like the tailwind for you. Ki you are driving with AI rather than competing against. Because cataloging method it will be competing against the new
Exactly.
technology.
Yes.
Very impressive. So, वो एक massive pivot था around that time. So, how did the company react to it? Were they excited कि now we have a new mission statement altogether? या फिर also, I guess for a SaaS company, it's also very hard to close down your existing customers and lose trust. How did that pivot happen internally as well?
I think for the company, for employees, even for investors, I would say a mixture of good and bad, but more good because we kind of knew कि existing business बहुत साल grow नहीं कर रहा है. There is something more to be done. And we had already done a few projects कि AI का to see कि उसमें किस तरह का काम होता है, exciting work होता है. So the team was still small, so it was easy to make everyone understand why we're doing this. And I think investors भी supportive थे कि मतलब this was looked like a much bigger problem, bigger market. So मतलब as far as I can remember, yeah, shutting down that business, saying no to those things, and like the financial impact aspect of it would have been hard. But luckily we had money in the bank at that time, so that kind of softened the blow, and that's why I think smoothish transition था. For at least the people, the employees, I would say we started doing a lot of cool things around that time.
Hmm.
So the product roadmap उस समय जो direction ले रहा था, that became very exciting for people.
Right.
So I think it was a good pivot to do that.
Awesome. And then what was the next part? Like it was scaling. कितने employees थे उस time? And then by the exit time, कितना scale कर लिया था?
So I think 2030 probably employees होंगे हमें this time पे.
Hmm.
Uh, exactly. मतलब maybe I'm wrong, but हाँ, roughly होते हैं मतलब less than 50 lakhs था. This was 2017. जैसे 2 साल बीत चुके हैं
Right.
from previous point. 2017 mid, I would say. And I think it was a gradual thing. I think for the next couple of years, it was the sell to more customers, get bigger contracts, build more products. And this was a very, like, our business model was not like a subscription SaaS based. कि कोई
Mm.
12 महीने के लिए सब्सक्राइब कर ले रहा है, you're getting recurring revenue every now and then. It was project based कि 6 महीने का लेबलिंग प्रोजेक्ट किसी का हैंड डूइंग इट, फिर किसी का 3 महीने का प्रोजेक्ट है, तो दैट मेड इट हार्ड कि एक कस्टमर तो एक प्रोजेक्ट खत्म होता है तो जो तुम्हारा रेवेन्यू बकेट है, you have to fill it again.
Mm.
That's why we had to focus a lot on enterprise sales. So, like my other two co-founders for most part of the year were in the Bay Area at your place
Yeah.
and selling essentially. So, वो काफी struggle for every dollar of revenue that you need to get, काफी मेहनत लगती है. But yes, we were able to grow the business. We were able to get into new products. काफी cool चीज़ है. हम लोग पहले जैसे 2D इमेज वीडियो गेमिंग करते थे, उससे हमने 3D लाइटर लेबलिंग करना चालू किया. This was like काफी, like उसका जो प्रोडक्ट था बनाने में भी मजा आया, दिखने में भी बहुत कूल था. एक्चुअली टैलेंट अट्रैक्ट करने में भी काफी हेल्प करता था वो. Almost
Right.
became like B2B product. So I think for the next couple of years it was only about like just cranking away and growing.
Makes sense. So things look very positive and things were growing. So what made you actually think about key let's actually have an exit?
So
Was it the offer and was it lack of motivation? How did that happen?
yeah. So, like I was saying, 2017, me and my group and Mazanum here. But over time, because like I said about the market and the business model, it wasn't always great. Like there were times when there were dark times essentially where let's say a customer is about to sign an order and there will नहीं हो रहा है. पूरी financial planning would actually go for a toss. And when you're running a
Mm.
company, the main reality is that you're responsible for everyone. You have to make sure everyone's salaries are paid on time, and
Right.
you're not doing you're doing the right thing for them. So there were bad times. Like there was a time in 2019 where we had to let go of your for people. We I hope like we did it the right way. Like we tried to get everyone placed in like our network. We were able to even get most of the people placed. But it was a very scarring experience. Like कभी वो थी फिर
Mhm.
कभी नहीं कर काफी painful होता है. And मतलब it's easy for me to say actually the people on further it's obviously 1,000 times harder for them. So there were times where maybe ये डील अगर नहीं आए तो 2 महीने बाद सैलरी देना मुश्किल हो जाएगा, stuff like that. But then we got out of it. Like this was even like much before the acquisition. We made decisions कि भाई जो थोड़ा मतलब margins बढ़ाने वाला, cost cutting वाला, and we had like some aggressive sales targets जिसके चलते we actually eventually became profitable. And we didn't actually, we were in a position we didn't have to raise money. But then, मतलब, we were basically at a point where we thought कि अब इतना revenue तो हो गया है, we are profitable, but for the next big jump that we need to make, और काफ़ी प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट करना होगा, we'll have to go to adjacent markets जो अभी कर रहे हैं उससे थोड़ा अलग. जैसे हम डेटा लेबल करते थे, बट हमें ये था कि मे बी हमें डेटा कलेक्ट भी करना है तब हम उसको लेबल करेंगे, या हम कोई ऐसा SaaS देंगे जिसको after the labeled people will use for managing the labeled data. So that's where we knew that we will probably need more funds. We were on the lookout for raising funds, and this was 2020, early 2020. I I remember I think मेरी शादी के फिर हम मिले थे और उसके I think 8 महीने बाद ही a few days later, 1 week later is
Right.
when the lockdown happened. And I think that's the time where we were talking to investors and pretty much the whole world was like, okay, investors, के bank accounts free होते थे. Like bank accounts free थे, but like they stopped investing. I mean, investment was free. So there were times, मतलब वहाँ पे where like our plans basically went for a toss. But since we were still in the market to raise fund, different types of companies. तो यहाँ पे ऐसा होता है कि there are your typical VC investors, and then there are corporate investors. So all large companies have a corporate development arm. So basically, the company itself looks for other companies to invest in. And so in one of the such discussions, so we were in talks with a company, much larger company in our space, जिनसे हम investment and sales partnership. You get customers, we serve them, we do an investment, stuff like that. But they made an offer for an acquisition, and अब वहाँ पे like मतलब practicality होती है, like you can't be very emotional about what you're doing. So we have to look at the worst case scenario, let's say if we ever run out of money, and the best case scenario, let's say like we keep on building and become very successful, etc. And उसके बीच का kind of running the probabilities, what's the most likely outcome के हिसाब से we took a decision. तो worst case outcome ये होता है कि you run out of money, you have to shut down the company, everyone loses their jobs. उससे थोड़ा better होता है कि you get acqui-hired, which is where someone acquires you for the people, not for the product, scraps the product, and then puts people on the job that they're doing, which also is not a good thing because no one actually makes money mostly. So we were able to figure out that these companies that we were talking to needed our product, needed our people, and were willing to value us for our customers, our revenue, for our know-how, for our product, and our people. So which is where we were able to get a good deal out of it. Investors pay, make their money, employees, have a good exit, we have a good exit, and we have a good place to work in. जिसमें people will have good jobs and they will value it. So उसमें essentially that's how the decision basically took place.
Nice. So in retrospect, would you say कि you are happy with that decision? अब अगर
Yeah.
देखें,
I think there is no point regretting it. Happy, like, and I'm sure it was the right thing to do at that time. मतलब maybe and अगर हम उसका वेट भी करते could complete like throw the dice to the life करते ही नहीं करते. But LLMs आने के बाद से तो दुनिया बदल चुकी है and like the demands for what we do stuff like that is crazy.
makes sense. तो आई थिंक वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन कि वह एक एस्पेक्ट बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग लगा मुझे कि यू आर बिल्डिंग अ SaaS प्रोडक्ट इन इंडिया and general awareness was lacking कि the market is too big in North America, US में. And I actually think कि SaaS products can be built in India. Like Indian startups can actually target this segment where you can build a SaaS product because of the talent and engineering we have and product we have in India. But how do they get awareness कि these are the use cases and these are the customers that are sitting there? वो कुछ advice है तेरी in general कि how to just get exposure that this is the next problem for the next decade?
So yes, I align with the fact कि इंडिया में इंडिया से वर्ल्ड क्लास SaaS बन सकता है because वर्ल्ड में डिमांड है, इंडिया में कॉस्ट कम है, इंडिया में टैलेंट है. बट आई थिंक जो गैप है वो नॉलेज और इंफॉर्मेशन गैप है. इफ यू आर सिटिंग इन द बे एरिया, यू नो अ लॉट मोर अबाउट कि लोग क्यों SaaS यूज करते हैं, वो उसके लिए कितना पे करने को तैयार हैं. Indian customers are the worst SaaS customers. Like they will not pay you, they will make you do services for every small thing. तो मेरा थोड़ा strong belief है and not it's not the most convenient, but I believe कि मतलब SaaS successful SaaS बनाने के लिए like बड़ा like large revenue big impact you need to be with your customers. Your customers could be in the US, Europe, whatever, depending on your SaaS, but you need to be with them. So either you live in the you know the Bay Area, or you maybe in today's world you live on the internet where you're talking to your potential customers. So there are examples of like Postman and all who have done that. Or you grow big enough that you can afford to be at both places, like have one person there, some people here. Like जो मैंने best model देखा है वो यही है, like Rippling जैसी companies का for example, where the person who's talking to the customers, the product person is there, engineering is here. That model works really really well. तो वो है क्योंकि इंडिया में रहते रहते वो insight you can only get for let's say developer tools, those are tools you use yourself or
Mm.
I would say there's a SaaS market divided like there's like individual or dev or SMB, small medium business. And then there's like enterprise. So lower end of the ticket size you can still do it like this. And उसमें आजकल और ऐसे models आ गए कि you don't really need to make it big. You can be an indie hacker and just make enough money to get by and live in Bali and travel the world without actually ever going to office. But if you want to, make like a unicorn as company or whatever, I think that again, you have to be co-located somehow with your customers.
That makes sense. Cool. One last thing. So, okay, what's next? What's on your mind now? Are you planning to do एक और startup experience इतना अच्छा था तो let me do it once more? Yeah, how are you thinking about the next 5 years?
Good you asked. So not just yet, and for the first time founders to थोड़े naive and like I know if I ever do something next time I will plan it well, know the market, figure out am I the right person to build this. But yeah, I mean right now I'm working maybe in the company and acquired us and we're doing like good Gen AI work, so that's pretty interesting. And मेरे personal interest over time काफी evolve किए. I started from like I said business analytics and over the course of doing the startup मैं बहुत ज़्यादा technically inclined होते हैं. So I was doing product management at Flipkart. Then at Playment also I was pretty much responsible for product management. But over time मैं programming सीखते गया करता गया. So now I actively try to code and I figured out that I like building things. I like
Mm.
creating stuff myself, and I मतलब बीट like assembling IKEA या देखो कुछ फिर बनाओ like उस तरह की crafting वाली चीज़ें पसंद है बड़ी teams run करना manage करना so is not the most enjoyable. So I want to just try my hands at like maybe indie hacking या game devs type की चीज़ें जिसमें
Mm.
शांति का कुछ बस बना रहा हूँ कुछ कर रहा हूँ ये open source for example. So at least I think I'll dedicate a couple of years to do this kind of things and then maybe think of what next.
So this time there will be no lack of developer.
I think I will to move on सही पकड़ा so I would never do that thing again like go there और कोई है नहीं बनाने के लिए and I want कि मैं हूँ like I should be the person who's skilled enough to do that.
And I think now at this point, because of again LLMs and Copilot, you can actually be the solo co-founder जो कि app बना रहा है and all you need is another founder to actually do everything else outside of the product sales, marketing, execution of talking to VCs and so on. So I think every developer will become 10x anyways. Um,
Yes ये तो मैं
so
बहुत
that's
strongly
very
believe करता हूँ मतलब आज के दिन में you shouldn't prematurely hire developers like at least first minimum viable product first maybe पेइंग कस्टमर इस तरह करेंगे करेंगे कि तुम खुद का कॉस्ट निकाल लो वो तुम्हें इंडिविजुअली ही करना चाहिए अगर वो नहीं कर रहे हो तो एनीवे तुम्हें लाइक तुम वो प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट पे नहीं पहुंचे तो प्रीमेच्योरली
right.
क्यों ही कॉस्ट बढ़ाओ.
Awesome. So we'll because we are already an hour above, so यहीं पे कट करते हैं ये वाला segment. एक और वीडियो बनाएंगे about YC specifically. I think उसके pros and cons and for especially for Indian startups. For this video, thanks Lol for coming on this podcast. It was very, very informative for me. I hope it was informative for the audience, the little bit of audience we have, and hopefully they will like and subscribe to the channel. Any last words or कैसा रहा experience on the podcast?
I think thanks for bringing me Janwada. I think fun है first time I think I've been on a podcast. I think एक बार मैंने podcast record किया था but वो कभी आया नहीं था publish नहीं हुआ था. So this was pretty interesting and yeah I'm a big fan of your podcast. So the audience as well share it with your friends and family and subscribe.